What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going over the current performance wire harness. I've already kind of started installing it. This is the integration harness they sell. It comes with instructions that are pretty detailed. Right there you can see what harness it is. Tells you how to lay it out, what to plug it into. Pretty much going over what it is. It's a very nice harness in my opinion. And it does go over it pretty detailed. There's not much left to be questioned on it. They do offer it in standard loom, which is going to look like this, only newer. And then they offer it in this nice flexible loom. I opted to spend the extra couple bucks because that loom is the same loom that the Holley harness comes in. So I figured, why not have it matching? So basically, it comes with 3 new connections that go into your factory computer. This is the only one that stays in the truck. It has your AC low pressure, which connects right about here. That's where your canister sits. You got AC compressor. These are all your connections that tell it what it needs. This is basically the wires that interact with the Holley harness or Mega Squirt, whatever you might have. Oil pressure is right here. This is the trans harness. It goes down, neutral safety and all that. You have these wires coming off right here. Coolant temp and your alternator. And this already has a resistor built in. That's what the instructions say. Somewhere in the harness, the resistor is already in it to run the alternator properly. But the harness goes around. I kind of just ran it basically where the factory wire ran, and it plugs into the bottom of the fuse box. So everything works as it should. I have already powered it up. Disconnected it for now since I'm working on it. But all the gauges light up. Everything in the truck seems to work. Obviously, I haven't ran the engine yet, so I can't tell if the gauges are working properly, but it does appear that it's going to work. On the trans harness, it does go back to the fuel pump plug to read the sending unit for your gauge. So the fuel gauge will work. That was basically my biggest concern. I wanted temp, coolant temp, fuel gauge, and I want my AC and all that to work properly. So with this harness, it's easy. The oil pressure, I'd have to get a different style oil pressure switch, sending unit, whatever, to work with this harness. Or I think I might leave this one, and you can't see it from here, but you kind of can. Right about there is where the oil lines would normally be. ICT Billet sells an adapter to bolt to that to put an oil pressure switch there. And then I would just have to get a little extension harness to run down there. So I think that's the route I'm going to go. So basically I'm going to have 2 oil pressures and 2 coolant temps. And my coolant temp for the Holley, I mounted on this head back here. Now, it's probably going to be a little bit hotter. Normally the back cylinder and the LSs are a little bit warmer. But even if it's 5 to 10 degrees, whatever it is, I'll have to check it out and get an idea of what it is. But if it's warmer, that'll be fine. If they're both reading, the nice part is I'll be able to check the Holley screen or the gauges if I have something that doesn't look right. And if they're both off, then I know I have an issue. If one of them's off, then I know it's probably a sensor or electrical problem. So it is going to be nice to have that double redundancy, basically. So This is kind of just the throttle brackets is kind of in the way. And when I turned it on, I didn't even realize I'd have fuel pump power, but I did because it started spraying fuel everywhere. So you can see that pocket's full of fuel. I didn't even know there was any gas in the tank. I thought I got it all out, but apparently there was enough for it to shoot a little bit up. So I know everything's working. It also, the harness plugs in to this, which is, I believe this is all for your HVAC stuff. But it's a very nice harness. It plugs into everything, makes it like factory. Now I'm gonna start putting the Holley harness in. And then also you gotta ground the Holley on both sides. I got this grounded just for powering up testing purposes. But I'm gonna ground the Holley right there and right here is the other hole. Because the Holley wants to be grounded on both heads. This ground right here I just kind of threw on. That's gonna get moved probably to the block. I haven't decided yet. But I'll get the Holley on, get all the ground wires hooked up, start plugging in sensors. I was hoping to hear this thing fire this week, but I'm waiting on the ICT billet relocation brackets. I'll show you guys why. The stock coil brackets do not fit. Oh, and I already unbolted. And I'll show you guys why they don't fit. And I've read this on a couple S-10 forums I've been on, but sometimes you just got to try yourself. So, that's cool. Wires in my way. There we go. So, on the stock bracket, you got a bolt hole back there, which goes to that one. As you can see, that's not possible. And even if I did somehow figure out a way to get it on there, we ain't plugging the wire in. And the same on this side. This side's not quite as bad. I could actually get it on. I did have the bracket on. There we go, bracket's on. So it would be possible, except for that. Now I could just tweak this a little bit and probably get it on there. But either way, then I'd have to cut this side. I just decided I am trying to make this look decent. So this is the Holley Terminator X Max harness. This is actually just pretty much the basic harness right here. Trans harness is still in the truck. So pretty much to about right here is where I'm thinking it's going to be in the firewall. Here's our injectors. Ignition even, map sensor, cylinder head ground. There's another cylinder head ground over here, and here it is right here. There's two of them. So the way they're laid out, I mean, you could probably ground them together. I'm going to ground one to each head. Ignition odd, and then you have your throttle position sensor, fuel pressure, and that is the only aftermarket sensor I'm running on this truck is a fuel pressure sensor. You don't have to run it, but if you plan on beating on your vehicle at all, it's nice to have it, and you can set a safety where if you lose fuel pressure, it'll shut you down. You got IAC, coolant temp sensor. That's who would normally plug in front of the driver's side head. I'm gonna have mine plugging in on the rear of the passenger side head. And then mass air temp. So anytime you're running like a speed density type setup, you gotta have a mass air temp. We don't have a mass air flow, so we got mass air temp. Pretty much trying to get a general layout of how I want it. I know right here, I'm gonna have it going in right here. I haven't pulled the dash yet, so I don't know what's back there, but I'm gonna modify whatever is because I've decided that's the spot that I want it anywhere in this general area. Right here is a stud for the heater core. I'm guessing the heater core is right there. I'm hoping right here, by looking under there, it looks like there's a little bit of space, so I think that's gonna be the spot. I am gonna peel some of this back. Nothing against Holley, they do a very nice job with their harness. If you just wanted to throw it on and go, you could. Everything would line up, but my coolant temp sensor needs to be moved back since I'm doing it on the other side. And it's very easy to modify these harnesses. If you guys are doing this, don't be afraid to do it. I already did it on the fuel injector harness, which I'll show you that. So here's my fuel injector harness, odds and evens. These were like up here somewhere, and I moved them back, and the reason I did that was because I plan on running this underneath the intake. They have it set up so you run it on top of the intake, which is perfectly fine. It'll work just fine, but I'm trying to wire tuck a little bit, not going crazy with it. I just want to pop the hood and actually see the engine and not wires everywhere. So I'm going to run this underneath the intake. And these spots right here, I got to trim this out a little bit, but these spots right here, this is going to come up. Flip around. Plug into the injectors. I already had it plugged in one time to make sure it worked, but so it's going to be like that. So when you open the hood, you're not going to see wires all up top. You know, what would normally be like that. You know, it's not that big of a deal, honestly, but I'm here, I'm doing it, why not? Also, I forgot on the current performance harness, it did come with a fan harness. I don't know what I did with it now. Anyways, it came with a fan harness. I know it's in here somewhere. I just don't know where it's at right this second. That fan harness plugs in to this plug, which is what's coming right out of the fuse box, where the wiring went to the fuse box. Plugs into there, has its own relay, and it looks like a snowplow relay. It's a big relay. So that'll run the fans. The Holley harness has a fan output. And you can set it up in the computer where when it gets to a certain temp, like say 160 degrees, kick the first fan on. And then when it hits like say 195, you kick the second fan on. Whatever you want to run it at, that's probably generally where I'm going to run mine. Maybe might change it a little bit, but. So that's nice because you can run electric fans, and I am running the Dodge Intrepid fans. They're like the perfect footprint for the radiator in here. And they're powerful. Dodge Intrepid fans are one of the most powerful factory fans made. So I'm going to start wiring up. Try to get some things grounded. I might even start pulling the dash, see if I can get behind the dash. I will show you guys that. I'll be back with you guys shortly once I... So, got the dash dropped. Knee panel, brace, whatever you want to call it. These are actually really easy to drop in these trucks. There's a million other YouTube videos, so I'm not going to get crazy about it. But down low, right in that area, there's a 10 millimeter bolt. Also one right down here. Bunch of 7 mils. You got to take your speaker covers off. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7mm bolts. Steering column drops. You got 4 15mm bolts. And you unplug 2 wiring harnesses. And a couple things on this side. I forget. It was like 1 or 2 things I unplugged over here. But the whole dash is out now. It's out. As you can see, it just kind of fell a little bit by touching it. So it does have some weight to it. I'm gonna have to wait till a buddy of mine gets here later. Have him help me take it out. Could probably swing it to the side, but I kind of want to pull the heater core box completely out to change. I have to change the heater core. That's kind of what started this whole project. The heater core was clogged, and it wound up clogging the radiator, the engine. It overheated, basically. The motor still ran fine, but I just kind of wanted to do it anyway, and it kind of gave me a reason. It's basically the easiest way to explain that. So, dash is dropped. I'm gonna have to wait a little bit, take a little break, but then I'm gonna get the heater core out, the whole, well, heater box, whatever you want to call it. And we're gonna check out back there and see if we can't drill a hole here. Here's my intake manifold, Trailblazer, TBSS or NMBS, intake manifold, whatever you want to call it. Holley throttle body on it. There's the IAC. There's the throttle position sensor. There's my fuel pressure sensor. And there's my map sensor. So a little bit of wiring. Most of it's going to run underneath. Haven't decided if fuel is going to run up top or not. I'll be going over that here shortly. These two are definitely running underneath the intake. This one's definitely going to run above this way. The Holley injector harness is made to lay on top. I modified it a little bit to mount it underneath. These were up in this area somewhere. So that way when it came up here, it would just, you'd kind of split it off in the middle. So I pulled them back a little bit, added my own sheathing, taped it all back up. Right there is where it plugs in. I cut these a little bit. There was enough room, but it was tight. So I just cut it just to make sure. I didn't want them getting pinched. So those are running underneath. So that way you don't really see it. I mean, it's there. You know it's there, but on the engine, it's not the most visible thing in the world, which is nice. Just cleans it up a little bit. I'm trying to run all the wiring as clean as I possibly can. Obviously, on a fuel-injected engine, you can't get rid of it, but you can hide it pretty well. So I'm going to get to work on the engine harness now. We're going to start peeling some of that back and moving some of the wiring. I'm going to get the hole cut out for the engine harness so they can run into the cab and into the computer that I mounted in the glove box. I'll show you guys more of that here in a minute. It's going to be tight in here, but I need to go about 1.5 inches below this, and then I can measure out the 3-inch by 2-inch square. The piece I got from Sharp Performance. It's a piece of billet that bolts in, and then it has 2 pieces that are the size of the wiring harness that bolt to that piece to secure the harness, and they're nice rounded edge. It's a very nice piece. SHARPE Performance. If you want to look them up, they have it's a very nice billet piece that goes in there. I was measuring my heater core box or evap box, whatever you want to call it. So right here, the heater core comes out, and that's where the spots are on the firewall there. Roughly 1 inch, 1.5 inches right here. I'm just going to go 1.5 inches. It'll give it a little bit of room. I'm going to trim this off. I'm hoping the wires will come in and have enough room to flex down. And they're going to come down and go underneath. And they're going to come up from underneath the dash right in this general area. They're going to come down and around. And then the Holley I mounted in my glove box. You can see I cut holes out. I might have to trim these ones a little bit better, but cut the holes out. So that's gonna be mounted in the glove box. I put little like rubber pads on it just to keep it from vibrating too much. But these lights are what tell you, any issues you're having. So it'd be nice if I can just drop the glove box and see it. I am gonna kind of like probably build something to go right here. So I still have a pocket to put, my registration and insurance and, maybe other small stuff. But that's the plan. I'm gonna measure this out and start cutting. I'll set the camera up so you guys can watch that. So what I did, I just drew it out. They do offer, there's like a drawing on their website. Since I already ordered it, paid for it, it should be shipped. I mean, I've ordered it yesterday, so it should ship hopefully today. I went on there, drew it out. Got a rough idea. That's not going to be a perfect. I'm probably going to have to trim it a little bit, but it'll get me close enough for now that I can run the harness in and get an idea of how everything's going to lay out. So we're going to drill some holes. Ah, yeah. Get in there. Sometimes you just got to bust it through, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to use a step bit because my drill bits are all trashed. And the guy's on a budget, you know what I'm saying? Now I can get in there with the air saw, cut it out, and then it should be close. I love having terrible paint on vehicles because I just don't care. Now we'll get in there and see what it looks like. Like I said, this is a rough cut. It's going to be cleaned up. Probably quite a bit. All right, kind of in there. I can see, oh yeah, perfect. See, this spot has a lot of space. I'm gonna trim this molded piece out. That's fine. But I think that'll work very well. I think that's gonna be a good spot. The harness is gonna pretty much lay under the intake, so it'll kind of shoot straight in there, you know what I'm saying? And have plenty of space, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna get the harness laid out now. I'll probably trim this up a little bit. I just want to kind of see how the harness is gonna lay everywhere. Make sure it's gonna be happy there. Might even bolt in the box after I trim that and make sure everything looks good. Oh, God, I didn't see you there. You watching me? Just trimming this down. That's all. Nothing crazy. Just kind of cleaning up the spot where the wire is going to come through. You know, it comes through right about there. So I'm not going to smooth it all the way out. Leave a little bit of a lip there because this is where it mates. Good part is, doing it with the old grindy boy, it kind of melted it together. So hopefully I never got to take it apart. I doubt I will, but honestly, if it ever got to that point, I'd probably strip all this stuff out of it and go full race truck with it. But for now, we're doing street truck things. So I'm just cleaning this up and keeping it. Just trying to make it uniform. And I don't want any sharp edges because if the wire does touch it, I don't want it to hit it, so, or cut it, whatever. So that's it. You guys saw it a few minutes ago what it looked like. Now it's nice and smoothed out. So I'm gonna go test fit it to the truck now. So it's exactly what I wanted. As you can see there, it fits. The wire has plenty of room. So it'll come in, it'll bend around nicely. It does touch it a little bit. I just pushed it out, but I think that's gonna work out just perfect. And I think that's gonna be a winner. A winner chicken dinner. All right, laying the harness in. So this is the injectors, which I'm gonna want that right in yonder. I think this right here is gonna be kind of my point. Yeah. Come on now. There we go. I think right there is gonna be about the point where it's gonna sit. We're gonna get our wideband down one of these sides. Come on now. There we go. Wideband's down there now. So we have our knock sensor, which is, you know, these guys. A lot of people delete them. I'm gonna do one of these clicker in places. I don't know. I kind of think I want this on the inside. I feel like the less in the engine bay, the less I got to deal with out here. You know, it'd be kind of nice. So I think right there is going to be kind of its point. Right there is oil and the cam. So that's going to plug in a little something like that. That's going to do a little something like that. And then we have our crank sensor. That's going to go on down in yonder, you know, down there. Something like that. Ignition even. I don't know if you guys, if any of you don't know, LSs are most forward cylinder is cylinder 1, and then it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So cylinder 1 is going to be the most forward on your driver's side. Unless you have some crazy race car setup, then it might change. I don't know. So this is going to plug in to this because this is the even side. The odd side is going to plug in something like that. And then this, see, this is the coolant. I haven't ran this harness back yet. Coolant temp sensor is actually going to go back here. I moved it from the front to back here because I have the current performance wiring coolant temp sensor going to the front one here. That's going to be the one that reads on the dash. This is going to be the one that the Holley reads, which, like I said, it's going to be a little bit hotter. That's going to be better because it'll catch a safety quicker than up here. Coolant temp sensor, that's going back. Mass air temp, or manifold air temp, whatever you want to call it. IAC, that one's going to be coming right here. So I'm going to have to string all this back because this, I plan on mounting back here. So all this is going to have to string back pretty far, really, probably to about the ground because that's where it goes on the head. Fuel pressure, that's also going to have to come to the front of the intake because that's where my fuel pressure sensor is mounted. IAC, throttle position sensor. So all these are going to have to be strung back to about here. Coolant temp sensor is going to have to go back probably to like here, like all the way. I'll have to zip tie it up a little bit. Mass air temp, I don't know where that's going yet. That's probably going to go in the intake, so I'm going to have to string this one back to about that ground as well because I want to bring everything from the back, try to keep it as clean looking as possible. But there's a general idea of how that's going to go. I'm going to start doing this. I'm probably not going to record it. There's not much to it. You just take this tape off. This loom separates like that. Just take the tape off. Little update on the harness, the Holley harness. I pulled all this back. So this is the fuel pressure sensor, the manifold air temp, throttle position sensor, and IAC, and then coolant temp it's over here somewhere. But I pulled all them back, so those were all running to about here on the ignition, and then they split off. So that pretty much separated them. So because these are all gonna run under the intake, the fuel is gonna run above the intake. So we'll throw that one to the side. I think this is a coolant temp sensor. That's gonna run over there. So these two are gonna get thrown back. These are gonna run underneath the intake. That's the IAC, the manifold air temp, and the throttle position sensor, because those are throttle position and IAC are gonna go to the throttle body, which is gonna be right about here. Manifold air temp is gonna go either in the intake or in the air intake that I make for it. So that's gonna be a perfect spot for them. Injectors are back here where I want it. Cam and oil, those are where I want them. Ignition even, that's gonna run right there. Same on this side, odd's gonna be on this side. Map sensor, I gotta peel this side back a little bit. I'm gonna peel it back to about that ground, so then it can run up the intake into the map sensor. I also wanna note, Holley makes a very nice harness. You guys gotta remember, this harness is made for any application, and it would have plugged into all my stuff too. I just would have had wiring where I didn't want it. I'm doing this because I want to, not because I had to. So I don't want any of you guys watching this to think, oh, I don't want to buy the Holley setup because I'm going to have to do this, because you don't have to do this. This is more of a want. Their harness is made to work on generally any application on an LS motor, you know, with this harness. So they make it to where everything will reach, but you might have wires laying where you don't want them visually, because they have to make it for every application. So I'm modifying their harness a little bit to work on my application. So I'm going to finish running this. I'm going to put new sheathing, or whatever you want to call it, on the wiring. I have a couple bags of it that I ordered from Amazon. The stuff's cheap, so this is cheap and easy to do, and it'll make it fit your application the way you want. I'm going to finish this up, and that's probably going to wrap up this video, because the piece that I ordered for here, the billet mounting block, wire pass-through, won't be here until next week. So next week, I'll make another video. We'll be installing this, running the harness through, powering it up, doing the initial startup tune, and then hopefully firing this up. And then after that, I'm going to download the tune that it comes up with, load it to the computer, you know, my home computer, And we're going to update the timing table, maybe the fuel table, all that a little bit, because the initial startup tune works great. You can run these LS engines all day long off that. But to make them more efficient, you know, run better times, get the most power out of them, you do have to go in and tweak them. They're going to be set very safe, very low on timing, and the timing is not going to be where you want it. So I'll show you guys probably 2 or 3 videos from now how to do that. But for now, it's going to end it off for this week. Finish this up. You guys get a general idea of how this is going to lay out now. Next week's episode, it'll be all wired up, and hopefully we'll be firing the engine up. Thank you. So there it is. This is how everything's going to run. This is going to be, I'm going to move this a little bit, so that way it's not, I'll have to pull this back just a hair. But that is pretty much how it's going to be. This is the manifold air temp. Not sure, like I said, I don't know if I'm going to put that here yet or if it's going to be in the intake. Haven't decided. But for now, we got IAC throttle body, or throttle position sensor, fuel sensor, which I do have enough room to run it underneath and bring it up like there, which I might do. But every single wire is plugged in. Honestly, if I had a starter in this, I could start it now. So this is kind of generally how it's going to run. My fuel line's hooked up. I know it's kind of hard to see. That's the return line. There's my feed line. Feed line comes from the tank. It goes around and then over to the regulator, and then from the regulator back to the tank. So that's the general idea. Obviously the intake's not bolted down yet. I just wanted to get a good look at it. And I'm pretty happy with it. I might try to clean this up a little bit. Might even try flipping them over if it's possible. I don't know if that's going to be possible or not. But if I could get the connector toward the bottom somehow, that would be cool. But that's going to end off this video. Next video will be installing the billet piece from Sharp Performance and hooking a battery up and firing this thing off to hear what it sounds like. I'm real excited to see what it's going to sound like with that BTR Truck Norris cam, because that is what I put in there. I'm also, it's a junkyard motor, curious to see if it has good oil pressure, makes any weird noises or anything. Fingers crossed there, whichever way. How do you cross your fingers? I don't know. But I'll be back next week, and we'll fire this thing off. See you guys.